Hey guys, Jordy here from It's a True Story. And today we have one of my all-time favorite guests who's been on a couple of other times.
I know, this is my third time.
I know. You guys, this is Dr. Jenn. She is a brilliant sexologist, sociologist, and author of the new book, From Madness to Mindfulness. Yay. And it's reinventing, what's the subtitle?
Reinventing sex for women.
Reinventing sex for women.
But really reinventing sex for all of us.
For all people. So don't tune out right now. Because dudes, this one's for you. 100%. We're going to get into that in a second. But first I want to let you know that all of Dr. Jenn's details, and you do want to know her, you do want to follow her, you do want to watch her YouTube show, that's going to be down in the description. So you make sure that you check that out before.
Go down.
Yeah. What I want to talk to Dr. Jenn about today, there's a million things. But of course, I think I told you guys that I'm learning to become I'm training to become a meditation teacher. And so the mindfulness piece of this, of what Dr. Jenn's up to, is very intriguing to me. So I think I just want to kick off and talk about, how mindfulness fits in with sex.
Yeah.
Because being mindful during sex actually sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. But I actually approach it from a couple different directions of how I apply mindfulness to sex. So first of all, because I'm a sociologist, I always have folks starting with, what messages did you learn growing up about sex, relationships? What did you inherit from our society about what it means to be a man or a woman and what that means to be sexual or not? What type of shame did you inherit or embarrassment around sexual topics or masturbation or orgasm?
Yeah, all of the above.
And yeah, we're not good at sex ed in our society. And to realize that we consider sex a very natural thing, which it is, and all animals do it. However, as humans, we put so many layers on top of that, and actually really quite complicated and quite nuanced. I help folks look at the physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects of sex and, mindfully reflect on what you've learned and how that's create belief systems that may not be working for you. And what emotions you have around that, and literally where shame, disappointment, fear, embarrassment, all of those, literally where you feel them in your body. That's the first place I have folks start with journaling on that and reflect on that, because my book, every chapter ends with worksheets that folks can actually reflect on and write in them. Thank you. Then and then there's aspects of like being mindful actually in the bedroom, because I think that's what a lot of people think. Like, how do you be more present? How do you not be distracted by performance concerns or body image concerns? And how do you actually be really...
This is not just a female thing. This is...
No, all around.
And body image, male and female.
Yep, absolutely.
Jen and I were talking earlier about the messages that we all get on social media. And it's like, everyone has to look like, abs of, runs of, everything is all in order.
And everything through a filter, so everybody looks perfect and at the right angle.
Yeah, I know.
And all of that impacts us in the bedroom, let alone that sex is one of the most vulnerable things we ever do. And I think that's part of why there's so much drinking or pot smoking around it, because we want to numb ourselves from that level of vulnerability. But that level of vulnerability is what makes for the most amazing, intimate, connected sexual interactions. How do we really experience pleasure? How do we attune to our partner so that we know how to give them pleasure and that they're enjoying it? And just frankly, that they actually want to be there and are consenting.
Right.
And are really, actively engaging in that sexual encounter. So in so many ways, the more we practice mindfulness with ourselves and get attuned to ourselves and our emotions and our thoughts and our beliefs and where they live in us, the more we can attune to others, which frankly is what makes you a good lover.
Right.
Like, that's what it is, to be sensual, to go slow, to be attuned, to really figure out what it means to please someone else. And everybody's wired differently. And then there's the aspect of applying mindfulness to our patterns in relationships, and around emotional intimacy. And, if you've ever been with a partner and they just fly off the handle for no reason, and you're like, I know I did nothing. So those types of patterns and triggers that we have that are so, that are the hardest thing to do. But the applied aspect of these things is so different when you're triggered in traffic.
Yeah.
Or, when your partner says something that's hurtful, or you haven't had sex in a while and your partner says like, hey, we haven't had sex in a while, and you're like, or you just shut down,
Being able to say, Jen and I were talking about this earlier too, like just being able to know what feels good to you and to have the presence of mind to be able to communicate to a partner what that actually is. I mean, think about that. Like, when you think about like what really feels good to you versus what society tells you is supposed to feel good to you or is supposed to look good to you.
Yeah.
Maybe two different things.
And so, and I'm hearing this more with younger generations of women and college women, and I think part of it is that they've been raised just seeing porn a lot, and that's the version of sex education
we're all raised,
they've
we're
gotten
all
right,
seeing
but definitely right. Well, we see
porn
it a lot.
is a lot more accessible,
but at least when we were growing up, oh yeah.
So, but now,
so for many folks raised just with porn being so easily accessible, and that's a large part of our sex education, but not good sex education.
No,
and so I think many young men don't actually know how to please a partner. So getting in touch just with that place of with your own pleasure. And I hear more and more young women asking that, well, how do I know what I like? And so I always talk about, you gotta masturbate. You gotta masturbate.
We have a video. Dr. Jenn and I did a video about that. I'll put the link to that one in the description.
Oh, yay.
Too.
Yeah.
We did a self-love
video.
Yeah.
That's right. So, and just knowing that you deserve pleasure, first of all, that you're worthy of pleasure, and that it does not have to be a shameful or embarrassing or a bad thing to explore your own body, and then finding your voice in sexual situations. So, and for the dudes out there, if you're with young women, help them facilitate their voice. Because they're not raised in a society that's actually okay, and there's a lot of embarrassment around it.
Which is so weird to me. It's like, in some ways, I feel like we've progressed so much.
I know.
And then in other ways, and it goes both ways. We were also talking about, being a guy in the Me Too generation and being concerned about what do I do? Like, what am I allowed to do? What's okay?
Right.
Is it going to come back on me?
And again, there's this attunement. And I think a lot of guys are, if you're raised with sort of traditional masculine values of what it means to be a man, you're taught that you shouldn't be in touch with your emotions, that's weakness.
Yep.
And quite to the contrary, like being in touch with your emotions and sitting with the discomfort of that and then being responsible with it, that takes so much courage.
And so mindfulness, in a way, I feel like, you picture somebody silently meditating, like in this context, from a place of really understanding yourself from that deep part, then communication is really, especially in this day and age, is really important.
That's the mindfulness aspect of sitting with the discomfort, the awkwardness, the shame, the fear of rejection, the fear of being judged for bringing up sexual topics. You may be able to feel the discomfort of someone else when you bring up those topics, and it's learning how to sit with that discomfort. That's at the core of the applied mindfulness that I'm talking about sexually and with emotional intimacy.
Well, Dr. Jenn, before we wrap up, because we do a very, are there any tips that you can share with people that in a mindful age, male, female, that, when it comes to approaching a sexual, what's your number one thing that you say to people?
Oh my God.
We have already said,
right.
Talked about communication.
I know, slowing down. I mean, I'd say, and just because, Trudy shared with me that's a lot of young men that watch her show too.
Thanks, guys.
Don't ever assume what someone else wants sexually. And we're kind of taught to approach sexual situations, or I think young men are, as that you're taking something from someone, or you have to get something from them.
Right.
And to change your framework of no, this is a collaborative experience. Yeah. We both want to enjoy this. We both want to get pleasure from this. We both want to feel safe in this situation. And we want to feel like we have a voice and some level of connection there. So don't view it more as a teamwork approach, as a collaborative approach, as something you're doing together. And frankly, again, that's what makes you a good lover. Yeah. It's like our baseball analogy of sex. Yeah. It's like you're trying to steal bases. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You keep pushing, pushing to try to get to the next base, instead of being we're completely let go of that analogy. The baseball one's horrible. Yeah. Or if you have to use it, I tell people, I'm run in the outfield, run up in the stands, be like, woo! Let it be organic and whatever you want it to be. It does not have to be a prescribed way.
All right. Honor, respect, you guys. And it's sexy. And forget your baseball analogy. I'm summarizing. But what I really want to do now is thank Dr. Jenn for some really amazing insight and reminder about her book. Go get it, you guys.
It's on Amazon.
There's going to be a link below where you can go get her book. I want to thank you. Go down. Not there. Keep going.
Keep going.
Got it. And that's what I have to say to you guys. Also, I'm here every first and third-ish Thursday of the month, at least twice a month on a Thursday. I come to you with many things, and if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks again to Dr. Jenn. Thanks again to you.
For having me.
And peace out, you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.